Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world. My name is Carmen Mazzara, and I serve as Executive Director of your Coalition for American Public Diplomacy and Leadership. As you know, Capital relaunched just about a month ago with a focus on education and best practices sharing and storytelling, all to really share the history and the power of Bridge USA. And we're very excited to have, as part of our launch and kickoff, the great folks from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Dan Bullock from International Residence Halls, Inc., here to talk to us about their case study, creating some J1 housing in the Myrtle Beach area. What we're going to do is we're going to have a brief conversation among all of our panelists, and then I'm going to invite all of you to throw in the chat any questions that you have. And I know some of you submitted questions in advance during the registration process as well. But we want to make sure that you all can draw out of this session some great lessons learned as it makes sense to bring these kinds of great opportunities into different communities so that we can always continue to be of great service to all of the wonderful folks involved in the Bridge USA community. I mentioned our great speakers, and I want to very briefly introduce all of them before we jump in. Dan Bullock is the president of Holtz Companies and an owner in International Residence Hall, Inc., as well as Holtz Builders, Inc. He has been a small family business owner, a college instructor, a touring musician, and worked in state government and been a board member for lots of different nonprofit organizations. Stephanie Duncan is the Director of Human Resources at the Lazarus Group, and she's been a seasoned leader with over 20 years of experience in human resources and financial operations, leadership training, and development. She's also been a Myrtle Beach resident for over 20 years, and in her free time participates in all of the great things that community has to offer. And what I appreciate is she says her approach to life and work exemplifies her belief in the importance of community, connection, and personal growth. And that sounds like a lot of what we try to do within the Capital family as well. Mark Lazarus is with us. He's the president of the Lazarus Entertainment Group and has been a Myrtle Beach resident for over 40 years. The Lazarus family owns and operates Myrtle Beach and North Myrtle Beach Grand Prix amusement parks, the Wildwater and Wheels Water amusement park, as well as the Broadway Grand Prix, the Myrtle Waves Water Park, and many other great opportunities under the Lazarus Entertainment Group brand. He volunteers with lots of different civic and political organizations, including the Chamber of Commerce in Myrtle Beach, the Myrtle Beach Hospitality Association, the International Association of Amusement Parks and Associations, the Boys and Girls Club, so many different components of civic and public life, as well as commercial life within the Myrtle Beach community. And then finally, Kathy Winfree is with us, who has the wonderful title of being the Bridge USA City Liaison for the Myrtle Beach Area Hospitality. And she works both with Myrtle Beach Grandstand and the Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce to really help make sure that this is a wonderful and welcoming community for participants. And she's had the great experience to go and visit J1 participants and their families in Kazakhstan, Bulgaria, Serbia, Taipei, and the Philippines. So it really shows the deep connections that can come from a great program like this. She's also a member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee within Myrtle Beach. And so that also gives us a great opportunity to talk about how it's not just a housing piece. There's really a lot of support that goes around when we welcome J1s into our different communities. So again, we're going to have a brief conversation among our panelists to hear more about what they did, why they did it, and how they did it. And then we invite all of you to put your questions in to help us move forward. So Dan, I'm going to start with you. What is the Myrtle Beach J1 Student Housing Complex project, and why did you all decide to build it?
Sure. Well, thank you. First, I'd like to say I'm very humbled to be alongside Stephanie and Mark and Kathy in presenting today. Great people, they do wonderful things. So I'm just very grateful to be a part of this today. So with that question, the Myrtle Beach Housing Complex is an international residence hall, or IRH we like to call it. It's an IRH campus. We're the largest and most experienced provider of Bridge USA cultural exchange participants and others. Our goal is to create lifelong ambassadors, which are the goals of the exchange programs. Our facilities are intentionally designed to be a home away from home for all these individuals that come from many other countries around the world. Our facilities feature on-site full-time staff, RFID access and restriction to the buildings, security with live video monitoring in the common areas and the grounds. Each of the facilities has individual rooms that have individual restrooms and showers and table and chairs and big storage lockers to store their things, in addition to community areas. So there's gathering spaces, there's community kitchens. When it's possible, we have a workout facility or maybe a market that carries kind of the common things. But again, the idea is, and laundry in every building, but the idea is to create a home away from home space where these individuals can come and feel good and have a great experience while they're here in their various communities like Myrtle Beach. As it relates to Myrtle Beach, this campus, the first building, will be open here in just a few handful of short weeks here. It is a 3-story, 38,000 square foot building. It holds about 300, just over 300 individuals. That is phase 1A of the project. The full phase 1 has a second building, similar in nature. And when it's fully built out, this campus will have 5 resident buildings, a community center, and hold almost 1,600 guests simultaneously.
That's amazing. Mark and Stephanie, I'm curious, what return do you feel like this kind of endeavor delivers for the community as well as for your business?
Well, the return for the business is that's the obvious reason. The J1 students are very important to our economy here and to our business. Our school systems go back to school really early, believe it or not, being in a tourist economy. They go back the first to second week in August, and we still have a long summer ahead of us. A lot of the northern schools don't go back until after Labor Day. And then a lot of times our kids don't get out of school until the first or second week into June, and we've already kicked our season off. Whereas the exchange students, they can come over mid to end of May. We actually have about 30 Ecuadorian kids here right now that are on their spring break. So it kicks off our fall season here with us going into the spring. So it's if we didn't have these young men and women here for our businesses, we certainly wouldn't be able to operate as extensively as we do. We'd have to shut down, curtail our hours and things of that nature. So they play a major part into our business here. And then of course they're part of the economy. They're part of the community. And that's really where IRH has come into play for us, is really making it a safe environment. First and foremost, we want it to be a safe environment for these young men and women. We have a lot of young men and women that, I'm a father, and I'm going to ask where my children are going, if they're especially going overseas. And I'm going to make sure that it is a safe place for them to be. So we're taking every effort there is to make sure of that. And that's what really drew us to the IRH brand of what they do. So it's extremely important and viable for us. And in turn, we hope that we're creating a great positive atmosphere and experience for these young men and women to take back to their homes and tell others and want to come back. And, hopefully it helps their education along the way also.
And Kathy, what does this mean for the community of Myrtle Beach as a whole?
Well, so I think for myself, more than anything, we learn from them. I have seen over and over again. I'm always excited when they come, excited to do welcome orientations. We actually do welcome orientations in the spring and in the summer. So we welcome them. We give them everything they need under one roof. We do Social Security applications. We have our local bus system, Coast RTA. We have T-Mobile that pulls in with their huge pink van. They can get SIM cards and phone service, whatever they need. The police department is there to speak with them. Just honestly, a big blowout to welcome them. But more than anything, I would say our community is learning a lot about diplomacy. Honestly, that's why the program was created in general. And they're teaching us a lot. And we're trying our best to make sure they have a good experience while they're here.
That's great. I'm curious how the project got started. How did it come about and who was involved first in conceiving of the idea to build this project? And then how did you all move it forward? And I'll throw that open to anybody who wants to jump in and walk us through the steps of how you all got to really deliver on something that a lot of communities haven't yet been able to deliver on.
I can start.
Do
Yeah, yeah. So, how it got started was back in 2021. I was presenting at a national CSG conference. CSG stands for Community Support Group. Those are the groups within the individual communities that help support the programs and the participants of the exchange programs. And really engaged in the community shortly after that. Started with the mayor's office and then a few folks from like the hospitality community, and they all put Mark and I together. That's really how that got started. Mark is our local champion. That's how we like to refer to him. He's been instrumental in the process. He's helped us work through, the various steps that we take in we're in other communities. So this building that opens in April in Myrtle Beach will be our 25th, I think, something like that. So our brand came to the community that way. But again, it really takes someone like Mark, like a local champion, to be able to lean on and work with. And then as we went through that process, working with Horry County, the mayor's office, city departments, our financing partner, Smart Bank out of Tennessee, JLL and Burrs and Foreman, with their help, talking to the municipality about incentives and other things that are needed to get a project like this off the ground. Because, any development project is difficult. But even maybe more so with these because they are unique. It often takes a little while to help people understand exactly what these projects do and who they're for and those sorts of things. But the Department of State for their hard work and unrelenting support of cultural exchange and J1 and Bridge USA, but also the sponsor agencies, right? So we engage them and we're in the communities to make sure that we're involving as many people as we can as early on in the process as we can. And then really ultimately the participants, the exchange visitors that come and give us all a reason to do the things that we're doing. But really how it got started and how it went through the process was, and I'll talk about, Kathy and her group, All Nations Cafe, Impact Ministries, the Myrtle Beach CSG and Alex and Christy and all the people there that helped. But it really started with that conversation that came out of this presentation at one of these meetings. And then just really having I'll tell you one thing I like about Myrtle Beach, having such a common vision, engaging with folks in the community. And again, I'll use Mark and Stephanie as examples, and Kathy, to see they're already there, right? They already are there to support. They're already there to make this experience better than it is anywhere. And so having that kind of community to move into is a huge plus. And I'm so grateful, as I mentioned, to be alongside them today and for all that they do, because we're grateful to be a part of the community, and we wouldn't be there without them.
And Mark, as that local champion, were there obstacles that you encountered or places where some more clarity was needed to make sure that folks understood the benefits and the challenges of an endeavor like this?
Yeah, I think the first thing we had to find the right piece of property. Property values are very high here in the Myrtle Beach area. So to be able to pull it together and our partner Burrs and Chapin had a unique piece of property located right in the middle of where we needed to be. So it kind of worked out. They're in the hospitality industry, also have a lot of assets, own some of the assets that I lease also. So, they saw the vision too and saw the need that we have and the opportunity to, hopefully have workers for our businesses here. But, we've been hiring J1s probably for the last 12, 14 years, I guess. And we've been through all kinds of reiterations of it, from having sponsors that we just hired the kids through, and then they had to provide the housing. I tried to stay out of the housing for as long as I possibly could. And it finally got to a point that the kids weren't being treated right. So we made a determination to take it over and control that ourselves. So over the last few years, and the blessing bringing Stephanie on to learn, what we do is, we probably had 150 kids last year, and over the last couple of years, and we've had to place them in housing. That's one of the requirements, but then we have to get the housing approved, make sure that it's close proximity, or at least we have the transportation available to where they can get back and forth to work and, to the other areas that they want to go to. So that was a challenge. So we probably had 4 different people that we dealt with, or outfits that we dealt with, and spread out in different housings, whether it was a house or whether it was a condominium, things of that nature. And then, in the middle of the summer, you find out that one of the units was not approved like they had told us it was, and you've got to move 19 kids July 4th. But you've got to make sure that these kids are taken care of. So we took the challenge on and fortunately started researching, and because of the conference and learning more about IRH, we're able to bring them here. And I didn't have a lot of people. People understood it here. The hospitality world understood what we needed, but I just don't think they had the vision of how to get it done and what to do. And we were blessed to meet Holtz Builders and Dan and IRH, and over the years, Kathy, I can't say enough about, how she has been involved and helped us maneuver through when we have, issues and kids get homesick, and just the needs that they have. What she has done with her organization as a support to us. So, the communities come together, and the city understands it. They're all very supportive of it. We had to get that sign off first too. So, as Dan said, from my political career, I was able to dig down deep and pull all that together too. But, everybody that's involved, it's been great and much needed. And finding them as a one-stop shop too. With IRH, you don't just get a housing facility, you get another level. That helps us recruit the kids, making sure that we're, everything's being done properly, that we're, staying within the laws, and that there's a safe place for the kids to go to and an advocate for them. And, reaching out to Kathy's group to be part of it. A lot of groups would come into town and say, well, we appreciate what you're doing over there, but you mind your business, we'll mind our business. And that's not the approach that IRH takes. And that's why they've been successful in all the other communities that they've been in, and they get it. So, to have my other option, quite honestly, we were looking at some multifamily or some old hotels that I was going to have to rehab. And so our organization was going to go in and buy them and rehab them. And then, we were going to be in a full-time housing business. And I'm in the amusement park business. I don't want to deviate from that. So, fortunately, Dan's group, I put a hard sales job on, but it's been great. And we're looking forward to the first building opening. And to brag a little bit, we have half of the building for the Lazarus organization already reserved. So Stephanie's doing a great job recruiting, and we've already made the offers out to 175 kids. We know that we're probably a little over now, she's telling me. Knowing that, a lot of them, some of them won't get their applications or their visas will be denied or just decide not to come. So we generally will hold it around 150. But anyway, that's really the story.
And, I will say too, for recruitment purposes, when we're looking, I know that you were talking about challenges, but I do want to share this with everybody. The long-term investment for this, for the exchange visitors, is already starting to show itself. We have more returners that are coming back because they know that this building is being built and they know that they'll have the safe haven. They know, exactly how IRH runs because they've been in different other cities with this. So the long-term investment with recruitment, having, our exchange visitors come back, so we have returners come back, and then that way it's going to make us more profitable in how we run our business, right? The training is going to get easier. So there's such a big picture with this. And, for me being a part of this, I feel like I'm kind of like in the middle, and I go to the sponsorships, and then the sponsorships to IRH, and then IRH to the city orientations. I attend those. I attend a couple of those. It is amazing to see that when a community comes together and really bridges the gap, right? Bridge to the nations of these three entities together, that it's seamless. This is where exchange students want the opportunity to have that cultural experience. They want to return to cities that have a very streamlined process in that, and they start to grow, like career development wise. They go back with understanding of leadership and mentorship and coaching and community. So I just wanted to put that in there as far as, the three entities together, that piece, that long-term investment and what it really means.
Dan, please.
I just wanted to thank you, Stephanie. Those are great comments. And I just wanted to jump in to mention, one of the things that we say is, housing's just not about housing anymore.
Right.
Jobs are not just about jobs anymore. And I'm so appreciative that you brought that up because, all of us, the employers, the support agencies like Kathy's group and ours, we need to make sure we're focusing on that experience. By way of example, in our housing, we do frequent events, sometimes multiple events a week, door decorating, cooking competitions, talent shows. We did our first national talent show last year where we had individual people competing at all our locations being broadcast live. It had a few glitches, but it went off pretty good. I got to be a judge. That was super fun. But, it's a little bit more than just presenting students with a job, a place to live. You really have to present them with that community that Stephanie was referencing. And I think Myrtle Beach is a head above the rest in that regard with all the things that we just talked about. But that is something that's very important to this community, but also to us as the housing builder and operator, because we operate these as well, is to make sure that we're working with Mark and his group, Stephanie, Kathy, other people in the community to say, what thing can we do together to enhance the experience? Again, it's not just housing, it's an experience. It's a living experience. It's not just a job, it's a work experience, so to continue to reinforce the desires of the exchange programs and do it in a way that really sets Myrtle Beach ahead of the rest. So just wanted to add that.
You're right. It's the simple things. And I can give you all an example. Talking to a lot of the kids, and, they eat with us every day. And got talking and I said, how do you like the food? Well, it's good, but a lot of these kids go over, they don't eat meat or they don't eat certain things. I said, what would you like to see? And every one of them says, we just like peas and rice. And be able to put maybe some barbecue on. So you know what? We just went and bought a big steam cooker. We make fresh rice every day. We do the pea. We let them, got the coconut milk for everybody and did it with their recipe the way they want. So they can get that as part of their meal every day and feel at home. We went and got inside one of our parks. We have flagpoles all around the miniature golf course. We hung every nation that we have, we hung their flag. And most of our kids are from Jamaica. And I'm telling y'all, they all stood still when we raised that Jamaican flag. It was just, it was a special thing. So making them feel at home, but as part of the community, it is a really great thing to do. And we have outings for them and try to do special things for these kids to really, pump them up, like Dan said, and keep them excited. So it's sometimes it's just the small things.
Absolutely.
And I'd
Please,
like
Kathy.
to add to that also. So we just kicked off All Nations Cafe for the spring, and we meet on Monday night. And in the summer, we have as many as 34 churches and businesses that come in, and it's like it does take a tribe, for all this to function. But they come in, they get a free meal. They make bracelets. They sometimes paint their nails. They practice English. And All Nations Cafe is like just everything, Dan. It's just going to be such a big addition, to work with you once this is up and going. And just have some of your students to come and participate in that.
We can't wait.
Mhm.
So I'm
That'd be
curious. So
awesome.
Dan's held Myrtle Beach up obviously as a great example of these best practices. For communities that are not yet as far along in their understanding about the contributions of these pieces, what information, what arguments can folks use to engage stakeholders? Stephanie talked about retention. She talked about efficiencies. How can others make the case to their communities who may not already have this inherent sense of the value of these kinds of projects? Kathy, I'd be curious for your opinion to start.
Would you repeat that one more time?
Sure. For communities that are not quite as far along as you all are in understanding the impact and why a project like this is useful, what arguments would you make, or what arguments have you found useful to help others come on board?
So the community in general, I mean, we've seen a lot of change. In the beginning, when I was hired as liaison, the first liaison was actually hired in 2018. And there was actually a young lady that died after she was hit by a Coast RTA bus. And the community just really started to change after that. The police department said, we need to do better than this. We weren't even doing the major welcome orientations that we were doing. So there wasn't a lot of knowledge even, out there of what a J1 is, what the program's all about. So as far as changes, like there's a lot more communication and working together. The big thing is just community. It's all about community. Struggles that we have, bike lanes, which IRH is bringing bike lanes, and better travel for the city.
I think
Stephanie, how about you? Yeah, please.
I think it really comes down to if you're trying to develop this in your own cities, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, I think it's really about getting in the ears, of your community leaders. Kathy talked about the police. If you're at a city that hasn't developed this, ask them how many accidents, right? How many injuries, how many people have your department had to go and help in the hospital. Having something like this is going to start a structure, a foundation, and build from that structure. So when the community is involved with all three of these pieces and kind of evolving, the education is there. Then the community is involved. Then the sponsorships are more involved with the employers, and it'll have a better effect than just not doing anything at all. You just really have to present it in a fact of, what is really going to be the outcome here, and compared to what bad is happening in your city. Hopefully that makes sense.
I'll take it from a different approach than they did. Is from a standpoint of a lot of, if you're wanting to bring it into community, a new community.
Yeah.
And the first understanding is that these J1s, the majority, if not all of these kids are in school. They have scholarships, they're studying. I mean, we have had kids here that have become engineers, doctors, lawyers, professionals, teachers, all kinds of jobs, and they're studying, and they come here to learn as a cultural exchange experience and participate in our community. But the other side of it is communities will say, well, you're bringing these in, that's going to create crime, it's going to be a problem. Not with these kids. You don't, because they have a lot to lose. if they didn't act, towards the laws and regulations that you have in place, because they have scholarships and they can be sent back home. They don't want that. They're here for the positives. And I'm telling you, we, over the, I don't know, 12 years we've probably been doing it, we haven't had any issues. Now, a lot of people don't understand the difference between your J1s, your H2Bs, your H1Bs, and you really have to explain it to them. And the other is, oh, they come over, they can't even speak English. Why would you want them in our community? That's not true. All these kids speak English. We interview them. All of them aren't as fluent as Dan may be, but they are, and they're very hardworking. Got great backgrounds, well suited, for it, and you have to sell your community on that, because you will find in your community there's the naysayers. Let me tell you, especially in today. I mean, let's just face it. With the immigration things that are going on and everything else, they tend to mix that into what we're doing, and you have to stop them immediately and go to your city halls and your counties and no, that's not it. This is a whole different thing. These are quality kids that we're bringing to experience, how we live and be part of our community, and they're going home because they want to continue their education. Almost the statistics are almost 100% of J1 kids go back home. They don't get lost. H2Bs, it's a lot less than that. And H1Bs is even less than that. So, the J1 program is extremely great program, and you just have to educate your community if you want to bring this program into your community.
Risk
And
versus reward, I think, right? Risk versus reward.
Yeah. And I would add to that, when you talk about engaging the stakeholders and helping them understand, a great example is we have a project in partnership with the Dollywood Company in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. In a recent conversation with Eugene Naughton, who's the CEO of that organization, they have been able, so we opened there in 2022, so we're in our third year. Since that happened, they as a business have been able to add the equivalent of 53 operating days to their calendar. So think about the economic impact of something like that in that community. So that's number one. I think number two is, look at the success some organizations have had. I'll use the Dells as an example. That's our Wisconsin Dells. There's a picture right above me here of our one of our buildings there on the campus here. That started with 2 buildings, 300 people. We're now up to 10 dormitories in this community that has a normal population of about 6,000 people. We get about 5,000 J1s a year here. So that's an example of when the community engages in the program and they do it the right way. This little town, and we had 500 exchange visitors under our roof in January. It's cold, it's snowy, but they're still here, much like Myrtle Beach, because of the way that they're engaging in the students. And then the third point I'll make is, when you have a CSG community support group, a really good one like Myrtle Beach has, those organizations, we also have a 501c3 company that goes to everywhere we go and seeks to engage the exchange visitors in the community through charitable organizations and charitable work. Because again, that helps them feel better. They miss home, right? I have 3 college-age children right now. And I think about, somebody said earlier, sending them somewhere else. And as Mark said, knowing, where they're going to be and how they're going to be accountable. But even beyond that, making sure that they're also having the right experiences, engaging in the community, helping people, having a little connection to home in that way. So, the other part of that is having that set up and having that community that's willing to do that. And then the people in the community see that benefit. To Mark's point, they understand. They're here to experience the community. They're here to do charitable things. They're here to be good human beings. And so we provide them the opportunity to come and do that.
That's great. And then to go back a little bit to how all of these pieces fell in place, it sounds like Dan gave his presentation, connected with a local champion who then talked to the city and the county and all of those different components to it. Then what happened? So you've got all these folks who say, what a great idea. What's the next step for folks who want to move this forward once they've got those champions on board? Dan?
Um, like any development, any project, you have to go through all the steps. So then it became, finding the right piece of land, which Mark was so helpful with. That is critical, especially as it relates to these individuals, because we want to make sure they are close to where they need to be, not only for work, but also for personal enjoyment and experiencing the community, but also have safe pathways to and from those places. So great location, great, struck gold in Myrtle Beach on that front. And then once the location is identified, it's going through kind of those normal development processes of design and getting approvals. Our buildings look very similar in most places, but there are certain unique characteristics in each place that reflect the desires of the community. So you go through that process of getting your permits and getting all your approvals and those sorts of things. And then typically, depending on whether it's one building or two, you've got a construction timeline that's anywhere from 8 to 12 months. Again, generally speaking. And so, yeah, that's kind of the nuts and bolts part of the process that happens after you get, people engaged and the desire to have it is there. Then you have to go through all the work, I guess.
And we're going to open it up to our group in just a minute, but I have one last question for everybody. In general, are there steps that you're glad you did that has helped this process move smoothly, and are things you wish you had done that would have really helped things go even better than it sounds like that everything's moved forward? And Stephanie and Mark, I'll throw it to you all first.
And from a structural standpoint, getting the building done and all that, I really don't think we could have done much more. At the end of the day, it is a financial project, and finances are involved in this. So fortunately, we did talk to several other builders and thinking of going on our own and things like that. But when you talk to investors, it is an investment and a lot of money. I mean, this is a $40 million build out that Holtz Builders and IRH has taken on. There's got to be built in some return. They look at it differently than what your normal multifamily developer looks at it, and that's another point of being able to do business with them opposed to somebody else. I don't know that we could have done it if it had been a financial REIT or somebody else that a real estate REIT that came in, because they look for a lot higher return on their investment, whereas IRH looks at it as more of a long-term thing and being part of the community. So you have to weigh that in and find the right partner in it to make it work. So, but other than that, we took a lot of the right steps. Dan trusted our group here. They're not from Myrtle Beach, and we do things a little different here. We're the independent Republic of Ori, so we do things a little different. But Dan trusted us from that side, and then we trusted his side. Back and forth, we had some good meetings and trusted things that they wanted to bring to the table. So there's got to be a lot of trust, but you got to go to the front end and get all the community support, get the city hall support, and because you're going to have to go through their building departments and regulations and everything else. So if you just go in and roll the dice and get started, you'll run into a lot of issues, stumbling blocks that we didn't have those issues, and if we did, we were able to handle them quickly here. So that would be where I am. But then from a student standpoint, Stephanie looks at it differently, just being on the human resource side of things.
I think for me, it's just, I'll say it like this, when can we build more, right?
I have an answer for you. We'll talk offline.
The recruitment piece of this is when we do the interviews and we start to talk about the housing and the options, their eyes are lighting up. They're like, what do you mean it's a kind of dormitory style? What do you mean that there's security? What do you mean I'll be staying with people of my own culture and we're going to have different games and activities. I also talk about city orientations, and it is amazing to see, especially those that have never been to the United States, that they take a breath of fresh air. They don't feel as if that they're just interviewing and good luck. We hold the hand. I'm very privileged and honored, and it is a big passion of mine to do this, because just to see the students when they come, the exchange visitors come and get here, they're going to be more involved in work too, because of the fact that they weren't completely stressed out how to get to from the airport, right? How to get to housing. Their housing was terrible. You know, I could go on for days about just the experience of this all. So for me, it's extremely exciting. If you can get this in your communities, you can see everything flourish from the bottom up, right? And it really comes down to that human interaction and what this is complete goal of the exchange visitors being here with IRH and our city orientations and our employers. It's been an honor to be with this company and to be a part of this in general. So congrats to everybody on here as well. So I hope you can get it in your city.
Well, thanks to you all. I think they've got some great lessons learned as to how this bring this to their town. I invite folks to throw some questions in the chat. I see a few folks have already direct messaged me, but you're welcome to send it straight to me or straight into the chat. To start, one of the questions that I received was curious, Kathy, how did the local residents of Myrtle Beach react to this project? And were there particular questions you got or things folks should anticipate?
We had mixed emotions, I guess you could say, because there was a misunderstanding in the beginning that our city was funding everything. So there was some mixed emotions. But once the knowledge was out there that this is private investors, that calmed everything a lot. And our goal actually is what I would like to do is to even go into special meetings to give others knowledge of that. That's the one thing that we do have to work toward, is just the knowledge in the community that the city isn't giving anything. You know, they gave their permits, they gave their blessing, but they didn't invest money. So that's the one thing that we're walking through a little bit, but it's calming, you know, more than before.
Yeah,
And that's actually, well, please go ahead.
Based on that's a great question, because you know where we placed this facility was right in the middle of right by a neighborhood, and the neighbors came out and they were going like, well, what are y'all putting here in our neighborhood? I've got the community leader and had a lot of meetings and explaining and going through with the community, and got them on board. So, when you're doing that, one of the first steps, if you're bringing it to your community, especially if you're locating it in close proximity, to a community already, they've got to understand that, what you're doing and how you're doing it.
And that's talking about the funding piece, Kathy, to your point, is a great segue to our next question, which someone was curious, how did the different pieces come together to put the financing in place? Sounds like it was not a public investment, but private investors. Would someone feel comfortable sharing a little bit more about how those lessons were, what lessons you learned there?
I can take that one, I guess. So as far as the financing, we're developers also, so we have other business interests with other multifamilies and things like that. In this case, for Myrtle Beach, we are very fortunate to have Smart Bank out of Tennessee is a bank that came forward to finance the project. They also did a project for us in Pigeon Forge, a similar project. They did our phase 2 project at the Dollywood location. Great bank, and like, the individuals on the phone here with Mark, Stephanie, and Kathy, they get it, right? They're not just in it to be a bank and give somebody a loan and collect payments. They're really in it because they're a relationship-based organization, and they really see the service to the community that's happening in these sorts of developments. So it was kind of, other than that, I would say it's a relatively simple, or I should say standard process of, approaching banks and looking for financing. We always try to work locally. In this case, it just turned out that, the bank that rose to the top was the bank out of Tennessee that we've worked with before. That's for that. But then as far as, the municipality and some of the financial support, there is some tax abatement related to this project, and that's very common in a lot of the projects that we're doing. In fact, almost all of them. So there is a little bit of that kind of investment. It's not writing a check to anybody, but it is giving us a little bit of help. And I mean, as probably everybody on this call knows, things are more expensive now. It's a lot harder to get things done. It's a lot harder to get a building built. It's just harder to do everything. So any help that we can get from a bank or a municipality or a community, we'll take everything we can get, because our goal is to make sure we're keeping the rent low. We're providing the best absolute experience we can, because that's our commitment to the community. We have to hold up our end of the bargain. And if we get help, we do our best to reflect that help in the things that we do.
That's great. Again, folks, I invite you, again, I'm seeing them come straight to me, but you're also welcome to put them more broadly into the chat. One of the questions we got, and then you all may or may not be able to answer this. At the end of last year, the State Department had some refined rules come forward about housing. And for folks who are curious, Capitol did build a housing worksheet related to those rules. But I'm curious, Dan, as you go through the design process in particular, how have you tried to meet those goals, those new directives, and how does that contribute to the way that employers relate to the housing as an option? And it's totally okay if you say, what? No.
No, absolutely. We're a very transparent organization. We try to be anyway. To Mark's point earlier, it's not about just, I mean, we can build buildings anywhere. And we're a construction company. We're in multiple states. This is a little bit more than just building a building. This is much more about building a relationship, being a participant, a positive, hopefully participant in the community. So as it relates to the DOS requirements, they refer to us as the gold standard. And there's a reason for that, because this is our 13th operating year now. So we've been doing this for 13 years. As I mentioned, I think we have in the 20s, 24, 25, 26 of these now. We've really tried to take into consideration all the way along, how can we make it better? How can we make the experience better? How can we make the housing better? How can we make the security better? I'll give you a quick story, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I told the story at our groundbreaking in Myrtle Beach in November. I was sitting at home one night and my phone rang at 10:30, and it was a weird number. I'm like, what is this? Probably a offer for a car warranty or something, whatever. But I took the call, and it was a father. I think he was from Jamaica. I'd have to go back and check that. But he said, I'm looking for my daughter. She went to the United States. I understand she might be in one of your buildings. She has not responded to my communications. So I said, well, as I said, I'm a father of 3 college students. I said, well, sir, let me collect your information. I'm not going to give out, a student's information or a exchange visitor, but I'll take yours. And then called our management, and within about 30 minutes, we had located the student physically, and went to the room and said, hey, your father's looking for you. Here's his info. So that student was able to reach out and make her father feel more comfortable. But that's it. That's what it's about. I would sure like to know if one of my children travels and goes to another country and I have a concern, or that I can pick up the phone and just find somebody that's willing to help and make sure that they're in the right place and being treated the right way and all those sorts of things. So a little bit of a digression there, but yeah, it's.
Stephanie, I'm sorry, we
I
didn't
thought
catch
somebody
that
was
last
talking.
bit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think we were just wondering, so for instance, what in the housing changed? Because I tried to look up the actual bill itself. And I really couldn't find anything. So
we think it related more to university
yeah,
housing
like
than it did to what we're doing.
Yeah. Were we missing in there?
Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think we've always started with deliver more, right? Under commit and over deliver. We've always started with that, including with this project that we all participated in Myrtle Beach. So how is it going to impact us? I don't believe it is. I think the requirements and the desires of the Department of State, we're already trying to exceed those now. And I believe even with the clarifications and things that have come out recently, that we're still in a position to be either at that level or beyond that level.
Yeah, I can tell you our city, for example, follows the code. It's so many square feet per student that you have to have, and it doesn't include the bedroom itself. So it's other square footage that you have, and then you can only put so many beds in certain square footage. And that's another reason why we're doing this project, is because we adhere to that. We don't. There's horror stories out here of a small apartment or even in people's garages, they're putting 15 kids and that's just terrible. So we make sure that we adhere to all the state and federal laws that are out there. And then our city is, because of the amount of J1s that we have here now, I mean, they're really code enforcement is making sure that everybody is adhering to those rules, and they're shutting them down if they don't.
And does that make your life easier, Stephanie and Mark, to have some of these pieces in place already?
Absolutely. I think the two examples, one we already utilized, but for the past 2 summers, we had to go in due to maybe a code or a city, something happened with our permit at the house, and we uprooted 20 to 30 students at a time and tried to put them into other housing. Imagine being here from another country, now knowing that you have to pack up all your things. You don't really understand why you have to leave the house. Now you're in fear, danger, right, of being in that house. And now you're still trying to go to work. So there were so many factors when you uproot them like that and move them. This is nothing but a blessing to have IRH here. And now they have the safe haven that we've been looking for quite some time.
And Stephanie, I'd like to add, just yesterday, and thank you, Dan, to you and your team, because it has raised a new standard in our community. And one thing that my job, I'm available if there's a new landlord who wants to house J1s who hasn't done that before. One thing I do is actually do a walkthrough, and I vet this landlord. So I'm getting lots of calls about IRH, and the landlords are like, really, they're stepping up and trying to do better. They're doing remodels on the inside. Yesterday, I did a walkthrough of a property that is little studio apartments, very nice studio apartments. But I said, it looks great to me, but we need to call code enforcement and let them walk through. You can't just open your doors. I'm not sure how many you should have in this square footage. And they agreed to code enforcement doing a walkthrough. So it's raising the standard in Myrtle Beach.
That's great to hear. So we have just a couple minutes left, and I want to end by inviting each of you, from the many different lenses that you bring to this, what is one thing you would want someone else to learn, someone else who sits in your role to learn from this endeavor that they can then bring to their work? And Stephanie, I'm going to start with you as our HR director. What's one thing that you would like other HR directors across the US to know?
I would say that working with the sponsorships and really getting your profiles down to what your employers are looking for, and very detailed information for the students to review. It cannot be, this is your job, here's a few things. When you put the profiles together for your sponsorships, for the employers, and from the employers to the sponsorships, those profiles are the beginning of how an exchange student is going to look at your community, the employment, and the city. So for them to even look of going to your city, that's where we need to really start. And I think after that, it's really about the interview process. I know that a lot of them, they're 5 minutes long, 10 minutes long. You have a very small window of opportunity. Be completely prepared and going over parts of the city, right? What the housing will look like, how that they would approach the United States if they've never been here. I know that you're going to get to know them, but you're going to understand if they need work on English within the first 30 seconds, right? I know that a lot about you, we ask them to tell about themselves and about their education. I make that about 30 seconds. And the rest, I'm really trying to get to know them and trying to get them to understand what it looks like to be here. So that's another big piece. And I think the last piece is, again, working with the city. You have to have something like this for orientation. And if you don't have it now, make sure that as an employer or working for the employer, your orientations are very robust and detailed. You talk about the city, right? You talk about every step for them to get here. I think I spend most of my time 30 days before the student gets here and making sure that they understand step by step by step, and very repetitive in what I do as far as orientation. You're coming up on being here. This is what to look for. This is where the orientation will be, right? Make sure that you communicate with us when you're coming to the United States. Making sure that communication from beginning to end is really solid. So I think those are the 3 points that I could say as an HR director.
Mark, that's a tough act to follow, but how about you?
That's why we have her here. Yeah, from the other side of it as the business owner, we look at it as an investment also. I mean, we have made as a company a huge investment in this program and being part of it. And we spend a lot of time and a lot of effort. Our little company never really had a HR department per se, and until we really got into this endeavor. And having somebody like Stephanie come on was just a blessing to happen. But it takes that. You've got to be willing as a business owner to invest in it. You have to manage it, and you have to have the right attitude with the kids, or you won't be successful. If you think you're just hiring cheap labor to come over and work for you, that's the wrong attitude. And our J1s actually get paid. They upped the wages across our community. To be honest with you, we pay way above minimum wage. They're not minimum wage earners. They get paid well. Prior to this program, we were having to pay a sponsor several dollars an hour, and then to manage it for us per kid, and then the kids were making less. So we took the option of we want the kids to make all the money. So now we manage it on the side, and the kids make more money. Of course, they do pay a weekly fee. Just to tell you how our company does it, from some of you that are looking to do this, our company, they pay a weekly fee for the housing, and then there's a deposit that's required or not required. We had to pay the deposits, but we don't require the kids to pay it. And if the kids stay through the summer with us, and this is all part of their package that they sign off on, but if they stay the summer and adhere to their commitment to us, they get all that money back. Their uniform money's back. They get all that. So that gives them a good pocket full of money to go home with, on top of a bonus system that we have in place that they get paid per hour. So if you don't do all this, you're really not going to get the kids to be as responsive and the return that we're getting. The return we're getting is because, we treat them like family and they are here to make wages. I can tell you, these kids, they'll work all they want to work. And they want to make money because they want to take it back home. But they do get the opportunity at the end to travel. They get a week to 2 weeks at the end to be able to go and travel and see everybody. They go to New York, Miami, or LA. We had a few of them go to LA this year. Why? I have no idea, but they did. So yeah, you've got to make sure that your business partners in your community are willing to invest. If they're not, it's not going to work.
And Kathy and Dan, I'm going to invite you each briefly too to share your lessons learned. Kathy, as that community, what lessons would you have for your counterparts quickly?
It's very simple. Communication, communication, communication.
Easy
Yeah.
and succinct. Dan?
For me, the advice is just, it's about caring for human beings at the end of the day. So when you have that desire, and you can clearly see that desire from the other folks that I'm presenting with today, stick to that. When you're doing what's right, not every day is going to be easy. Getting a project like this off the ground is not going to be easy, but at the end, it's the right thing. And so if you stick with that and you keep your focus on doing what's right and taking care of people, the rest will fall into place.
I love that. What a great note to end on. And I'm going to invite folks, I'm going to put a very quick poll on your screen. Just give us your quick answers to how we did today. And while I do that, I'm going to take the opportunity to make two very brief commercials. Next week, March 4th, we're excited to welcome former Assistant Secretary of State Marie Royce and Head of Government Relations for BDV Solutions, John Baselis, to talk to us about the connection between Bridge USA and broader economic prosperity. And then later on April 1st, we're going to have former Undersecretary of State Tara Sonnenschein and some other panelists talking about how Bridge USA and broader public diplomacy and the U.S. standing in the world work together. So these are just some of the great webinars that we've got in place. We also have lots of different resources and initiatives that all of you as Capital members can access. So thank you all for being here. Thank you so much to our panelists for all of your wonderful wisdom. And hopefully we will inspire lots of communities across the U.S. to think about how they can similarly deliver on J1 housing for their folks. And we look forward to seeing you all at the next Capital webinar. Thanks, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye, Mark. Bye, Stephanie. Bye, Kathy.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks.
Kathy.